Hello, everyone. How's it going today? How is everyone doing? I started setting up my pipeline to work exclusively from AMP, but I think I'll wait for a little bit more. Does everyone know the significance of the AMP pipeline? I feel like we're learning it, but I don't know if you guys actually know like why we're doing it, if it's been explained. It's it's really what it is everyone uses this in like every studio uses a system like this where you check out a file, you work on it, and then you check it back in. And the reason for that is for several reasons, but mainly that two people aren't working on something at the same time, or the same thing at the same time, or that if you take out a file and mess it up, then you can always revert back to that old file. So it's just like this redundancy system, yeah, for collaboration and everything. And I was just thinking about that while I was doing this. I mean, like I said, I finally got my my AMP working, and it was a conflict with my Double Find, my VPN stuff. It took a while for them to figure out why. But what we use at Double Find, and this is what a lot of studios use, is this thing called Perforce, and it's the same sort of thing. So like I have my project here, and then all of my files, like if I go through the source data, see for a game, it's like the source data is the stuff that the artist and everybody is using, like the stuff that isn't actually integrated in the engine yet. So my animation files would be like under all these characters that would have them. And see, like here are all the animation files. And if I want to check it out, I can do the same thing. I can open it for edit, and then it'll come back here, and then I can check it back in. But yeah, just again, like for class 1, you don't use AMP that much, but I know just a few people might be curious, like what's the point of AMP? And it's actually something that's really beneficial in that sense, that it teaches you really quite literally the pipeline that production studios use, and it's a really interesting thing. So, and enough of that, because everything I showed you was secret, so I can't open those files, unfortunately, not yet. Not supposed to. At least show you the characters and everything like that, but it's hopefully pretty soon. Hopefully before the end of the term, I can show you a few of what I've been working on in Broken Age, and the game I'm working on now, which was the Double Fine Kickstarter project. And it's interesting because it's not exclusively 3D, but we're using Maya to animate 2D characters, which is very new for me, and it's like a step away from Flash in that we have a little bit more control because it's 3D, but and a lot of times it's kind of interesting to be working in a 3D program and only be able to work on 2 planes really, because you see that flexibility and you want to use it, and you get kind of spoiled with animating in 3D. But hopefully, yeah, I'll ask Double Fine and see if I can get permission to show you guys some stuff for that, because I think that would be fun to see. And I can definitely show you guys other stuff that I've worked on in the past, like from the cave, and maybe that's what I have locally, so I can show you that. But yeah, exactly. It's kind of like how South Park does it with their 2D, 3D, because they animate in Maya too. Have you guys seen that documentary 6 Days to Air? If you haven't, I highly recommend it because it's kind of amazing. it's actually more than kind of amazing. It's like one of those where you're just like, that is insane that they go from story to a finished product in 6 days, and they show the entire crew, like how the animators are working with what's her name, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, like how they're working with them, and just like here, their story rooms right here, the animation pits right here, and they're all in this small building, and it's pretty cool, and it's just it looks pretty grueling too, but in the same way, it's kind of nice to have all that feedback so close on a production like that. And it looks like the way that they do it is they work really hard on a season and they take a long break, so that's kind of cool too. But I recommend that to everybody. It was on Netflix streaming for a while, for those that have that. But anyway, that said, let's go to questions first. Anybody have any questions about anything at all? Don't think that if it doesn't pertain to this week that it's not worth asking, even if it pertains to the first week. And so, Brandy, I'll show that too. And Dominic, I know you have questions too, so I will, let me cam you. Or, get this here. What kind of smoothie is that? It's kale, yogurt, blueberries, flaxseed, coconut water, and coconut milk. It doesn't taste. It's not the tastiest thing, but it has a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah, exactly. It's the healthy kale. That's the idea. It actually tastes pretty good, and maybe I'm getting used to it. I don't know. All right. So, Brandy, yeah, we'll definitely show that the ball stopped again. I think that's a good thing for everyone to see. And let me open that file quickly, and then Dominic, I'm going to bring you up, and we can start talking about your questions. Where are you, Dominic? Just a sec, though? Okay, well, let me open this file then. And let me know when you're ready. And anybody else have any questions? You can go ahead and queue them up, too, if you want the questions. Put on Funny. Okay, Dominic, how's it going?
Hello?
How you doing today?
You guys see me?
Yeah.
Not too bad, a little bit tired, but I'm fine.
Yeah, know how you feel. Know how you feel. So I know you sent me some questions over email, and I wanted, like we said, like we wanted to go over this just in the Q&A. I think it's good to go over. So
yeah, cause that's the thing, because I wrote you like a couple of emails, and I just don't want to, write 5 emails about my question and then ask in the Q&A, and like, I don't know, I was thinking it was a little bit too much, but since you asked me to ask that during the Q&A, well, I'll do it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Let me tell that just so everyone else knows. Like there aren't don't be afraid to like ask a lot of questions during this Q&A, because it's okay if we interrupt there's no interrupting the actual lecture, because the Q&A is definitely for clarification. And Dominic, this is for everyone else, just like so everyone else knows that too. But yeah, so it's definitely a good time for that, so we can collaborate with each other on that. So. Anyway, Dominic, go ahead.
Well, yeah, so my first questions are about I know Julian asked one of them last week, but it was not my question was a little bit more deep in that. So it's about I asked you in the email, the priorities about the pose. Between the line of action, the weight, the silhouette, the body language, Because I know it's all important, but what will be like the most important thing and in what order?
Okay. So yeah, that question, the first order we know, right, is like the story point. Is like, is it communicating the story to the audience? And that above everything. Now the next question, basically what you're asking is like, okay, well, if you have a strong line of action versus like the weight of the character versus all these things, what's the most important thing? And the way I like to look at it is believability. Can you believe that that character can be in that pose without basically falling over, without looking like they're not comfortable? Like that's a big thing. If you pose a character where maybe basically like this arm is like over here or like down there or something, and it just like looks like it's really hurting the character, then that starts to feel like it's unnatural, right? Line of action is very important, but if the weight isn't there and the naturalness, the comfort level of the character isn't there, then that line of action won't really matter. So because you're kind of taking the audience away from that idea of like, okay, that looks like the character is first of all uncomfortable, and second, the character is going to fall over. So if I had to prioritize any of those things, I would say weight, balance, and just like general comfort level of the character, like the character isn't broken in any way. Okay. And if you can build a strong line of action over that idea, then that's what that will be the next important thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just the thing is like, well, if you remember that like my first pause I made, like I was telling you that, you know, if I was bringing up the ips, I was losing my effect of exhaustion.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes like you need to do some compromise, but I mean, if you're losing like your main effect, sometimes it's not a good thing.
That's right. That's right. So in that sense, it's like, okay, you have to kind of reevaluate the pose and say like, okay, my main point is exhaustion, and if I'm changing this pose away from that exhaustion, then I must be doing it. I must be doing something wrong here. I must be trying to go the other way, and so that's the main balance to find. With your pose with this exhaustion, like I think even the revision I drew like the leg out instead of the leg up, and I think that would show a little bit more exhaustion. But the angle that you chose for this revision looked really good because it had everything proportioned in the way that communicated the pose. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Just I don't know, guys. Like, luckily you were there to give me some advice, but like, you know, maybe it's just a lack of experience from my part. But you know, sometimes if I don't find like the good solution, you know, and I still want my effect, like I don't know how to work with it. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes experience. It really does. I mean, that's the thing about animation is that you're not going to learn it instantly, and the way I like to see animation, because this is the way I learned it, was that I had a lot of failures before I started to succeed. And I'm not saying that anybody's failing at all in here. Obviously, no one is. Everyone's doing a really great job. But in that sense, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to like just push ahead and say like, okay, I didn't get it right, but I learned from not getting it right. Like I learned more, and it really is experience and comfort level. And that's the main thing with animation is the more hours that you put into it, the more experience you get, the quicker you're going to learn. The more you're going to learn that, and the more you're going to say like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's how that pose should work, and so.
Well, yeah, and I've realized that sometimes, like just by doing it yourself, you just answered your own question.
Yeah.
Because you know, sometimes you haven't touched it yet, and you're asking that question, but doing it yourself, that might just answer it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, definitely. So
and in the
cool.
same way, like you know, because when you're just drawing those poses to choose the one you want, because you tell me like the best thing should be like to choose a unique one. But the thing is, like, because like from the week 3 assignment, some poses were like not easy to read, or they were not showing excitement. So I don't know, like in the same way to choose a pose, what will be like the main thing I should go with, like, because one thing I've told you, like, I don't like stuff that are symmetrical.
Yeah.
It, and you know, when there's an overlapping, like for instance the arm in front of the face, and you told me that just don't think about that and just try some stuff. But
Yeah.
when I'm okay, but like when I'm choosing a pose, like I don't know, like okay, if I'm testing stuff, that might be okay. But like if I want to get the best one, I I don't know. I'm just thinking, okay, I need some negative space over there. I need no overlapping in front of the face and stuff like that. But I don't know what, in the same way, what will be the priority to choose like the best pose, beside being the
Right.
unique one.
Yeah. It's, and again, it goes back to experience and just trying, trial and error. And I think that if you're saying, if you're building a pose and you think like, okay, I don't want to overlap this shape over this one, because it technically doesn't seem like a thing to do, but I really like this pose and I think it's natural. And that, to me, that's more important, that you're getting a natural pose. And it's okay if like maybe that didn't work, like getting that overlap shape over in front of the face or whatever, that it's something that doesn't work, or it's something you think doesn't work. I'd rather see that, because you turn that in and you say like, okay, this is my dilemma. And you can write this in the notes section for the critique. You can say, this is my dilemma. I really like this pose. I really think it's natural, but I don't think that what I'm doing here, whatever it is, this overlapping shape, I don't think it's working. But I really prefer this pose because I feel like this feels more natural to me. Like, to me, I will respond to that a lot better. I will say, okay, like, that's really cool that you're trying something natural and unique, and maybe you haven't gotten there yet with that pose, like you haven't gotten like the technical parts down, but it's better to me to see that than to try just like, okay, that didn't work, and then try something that's very very bland in a sense, or not unique, just because it does work for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just, well, the thing is, like, not that everyone is stupid, but like, you know, when you see something, well, it's not like everyone will see it like that way. So I'm trying to make sure it's readable for everybody, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the hard part. That's the hard part of making a pose. And so what I would do is experiment. I mean, you put your stuff up on the public review, right? Like, you put your stuff up for other people to see. Have you guys all been doing this? Or I know you guys have a Google Hangout. Okay, and just showing people and saying, that's fine, because everyone says, like, they give you feedback. And it's cool to see that feedback. The problem, though, is that, like, a lot of times everyone knows that you're going for an excitement pose. Everyone knows that you're going for a devastation pose. So they have that preconceived notion of, like, okay, I know you're going for devastation, so I know that's a devastated pose. What I would do is show it to someone that isn't an animator. Show it to someone that you're just, like, a friend, a partner, coworker, anybody that doesn't really have an eye for it, and say, what do you think this character is thinking? And if they can get it, they get like, oh, that character looks kind of sad, then you're on the right track. You know that's working. That's my biggest test. I think that will show whether or not your pose is communicating to an audience.
But for the assignment, because like for this week we need to do a devastated pause. But I mean, if it's sad, is it working, or it's like, I mean, how strict are you guys for the word devastation?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the other one that's like kind of, there's devastation can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
If it's sad devastation, that's fine. Don't think it's too. I feel like sometimes maybe it's easy to overthink these things, and it's easy to like say like, oh, there's so many things that's devastation. Like, what could be devastation? But as long as there is sad devastation. I mean, that's the one that instantly comes to mind. But like, there's a lot of unique situations where you think, like, if you watch the Streetcar Named Desire, that famous scene with Marlon Brando where he's like, Stella, you know, that's devastation, you know, and that was like an internal devastation that he was just like being torn apart and emotionally torn apart. And so going back to putting your character within a context and giving your character a story and saying, my character is devastated because of this, that goes back to the story idea. Why story is so important. My character is devastated because they were in this situation and this happened to them, and now they're devastated, and how they're affected by that devastation. And if you think like maybe that, like I don't know if that's working. I don't know if that will be acceptable for devastation. You can always ask me and just say like, hey, what do you think of it? Just look at this pose and say, do you think that's devastation or not? And I would be happy to chime in and say, yeah, you're on the right track, or I'll say, like, I won't give you a detailed critique during the week, but I'll at least say, like, yeah, that's working, or maybe think of something else and give you some other ideas. Like, I'll definitely do that.
Okay. And ask other people's around that might help too.
Exactly.
Okay. For the bouncing balls,
Mm-hmm.
because the thing is, I don't know, like, when we're animating, should we stick more to a realistic stuff, or more cartoonish, or having our own style? Because, I mean, for the heavy ball, for example, I was thinking, like, to make it as heavy as possible. When it drops, like, it goes really fast. Because it shows that how heavy it is. But the thing is, in reality, it doesn't go that fast at the same time.
Right.
So, I mean, what's like the line, or
so,
what should we stick to?
Yeah, again, this is one of those things it's using your best judgment, using your artistic eye, and developing that artistic eye. Because, yes, it should be realistic in a way, but realistic is said with it's not said to a point where it's a hard rule in animation. And of course, there's different styles of animation. There's Tex Avery style, there's John Kricfalusi style, where stuff is just completely wild and physics are basically thrown out the window. But for Animation Mentor, we want to learn the way things behave, the way objects behave, and we want to learn how that they're being affected by real physics in a way. That said, you still need to use your artistic eye to say, okay, that looks correct. Does that look good? Does that look good? Does that look appealing? And does that work for my shot? So there is a fine line between like realism, like full-on realism, and something that is taking away a little bit of realism to add appeal. And in that sense, like maybe the arcs are you know, like I think someone, Julian, I think you brought this up with the ping pong ball in your notes, where you throw a ping pong ball on the ground and it's going to go all over the place. Like it's just going to bounce like crazy. And Dominic, just like what you said with the bouncing, with the heavy ball, like the same sort of thing where stuff behaves kind of crazily and when it comes to like real physics. And we have to kind of rein that in for our shot and just show like what's appealing and what's going to really have that same sort of behavior to show like a light ball, the ping pong ball still does bounce like that, like it's like bouncing really high and quickly and does that. But we're going to put it on a path and we're going to have it just be a little bit more controlled. And so in that sense, we're putting our exaggeration, like we're putting our own artistic touch to it. So.
Okay. So as long as it's believable, it's good. Like I mean, it doesn't need to be like 100% realistic, but as long as it's believable.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
And for now, no Tex Avery stuff. Like that's the thing. It's like a lot of people will come in and be like, well, yeah, I'm going for Tex Avery. I'm going for like that super over the top cartoony. But it's the same. Like Tex Avery is kind of like the Picasso, where it's like Picasso learned to draw realistic before he went into Cubism, and so it's the same sort of thing where you have to like kind of learn to do the basics. Even though it's not perfectly realistic, you add your own touches, but you know, that's how we're learning this right now. So.
Okay. And like my last question would be like, I like to work with the motion trail, mostly because when I put like lots of key, I can actually see like a good space. Well, I can see the spacing, and it's very easy to work with. But when I have too much keys, it's like almost I can't do anything with the graph editor because, well, I mean, you have keys everywhere, so the curves you almost don't need to touch anything. So I don't know.
That's
like,
fine.
What would you suggest? Is it like just a personal choice, or try to work with both of them, or?
It's personal choice. It's whatever gives you the result that you want is the way. The result that you get, and if it looks good, that's the way to do it. If you don't have to open a graph editor, you don't need to. It's not. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Because in college I had this what do you call that? Technical director, and he was like showing, because he used to work for video games, but like old ones. So when we were doing animation, he was trying to show us like how to put the least, to have like I don't know, instead of having keys everywhere, just with 3 keys you can do like stuff, and because keep it clean basically, and play with the curve and these kind of stuff. I mean, at a certain point, like we talked about that, it's like not that much artistic. It's more being like a technician when you're doing that.
Right, exactly. I mean, there is something to keeping it thing clean, but you guys don't worry about that now. That comes if for whatever reason the job needs it. That's something that will come as the job comes up. For now, you guys do whatever you need to do to get good animation. If that means you don't have to look at the graph editor, then more power to you, because that just means like you're looking at each frame individually, and that the lead, actually the director now, Mike Thurmeyer, he's the one that at Blue Sky he wouldn't open the graph editor. Like, he would do his entire shot without using the graph editor, and it would look like, I think at the last minute he'd like go in and do a few tweaks here and there. But it blew me away, because I learned it the other way. I learned it like doing the graph editor. And you'll see a lot of my demos using the graph editor, but if you don't need to use it, just know that there are a lot of animators out there that don't use it, and it's totally fine. Like, it's really like whatever gets you the results that you need is the way to do it.
Okay. No, because I'm used to work with it, but like having known the motion trail, I don't know, I just find it a very good, useful tool. So I've been working with it for my bouncing ball, and I don't know, I was just trying it, but at the same time, I don't know, I liked it like more than the graph editor for those exercises.
Good, yeah.
So anyway, that was it.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Everything clear?
Yep.
So far, so good. Okay, great. Thanks, Dominic.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
All right. So, Casey, I see you have some other questions too. Can we use props from AMP for our pose, e.g. bench chair? Yeah, sure. Why not? That's fine with me. If it's in there, that's definitely okay. And then you have another one. Let me cam you for this one, because when you say we should increase the height of our bounces. Hey, Casey.
Hi.
How you doing today?
All good, all good.
Good. Okay, so when you say we should increase the height of our bounces, should we just increase the height of the curve, or do we need to add more frames, or is this different for each assignment? It is definitely different for every assignment. If I tell you increase the height, I forget what I told you yesterday in terms of, like, I said increase the height. If I said to make it faster, then that means just increase the height with, if that's the case, just increase the height without changing the timing. I would just take it, if you're comfortable with the graph editor, I would just take that key in the graph editor and move it up just to give it a little bit more snap in there, and so that'll be faster. But that is, for every assignment, that is different, so I wouldn't say that that's a rule by any case. It was just for the bounce in your assignment. That's what I was going for. So.
Okay, cool. And then also, one thing I also wanted to ask was, you know, when you said it needs to, the last spacing before it hits the ground needs to be higher than the one coming out?
Yeah.
Does that apply to like every ball? So like the ping pong ball as well?
Yeah, I would say that applies to every ball, that every bounce. It
Okay.
just it's one of those things that with every bounce the energy is kind of bleeding off from that bounce, and that's a good way to show that graphically, is to have that from
Okay.
that bounce coming in is going to be a little bit higher on that bounce than the next bounce coming in, and that's just an old 2D animation trick that used to use. So that'll give that
Okay.
that presentation. So cool. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Great. Any other questions?
No, that's it. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thanks, Casey. All right. Yes, exactly. So let me see. Anybody else have any other questions? My niece and nephew are my lab rats. I just saw that. Okay, Brandy, let's go over this again, and this is for everybody, of course, because the thing I want you guys to understand is that if something doesn't click during one lecture, during one Q&A, please ask that again in the next Q&A. And it's one of those things that, like, everyone's learning here. Some people might have gotten that concept, but it doesn't matter, because it's always good to go over concepts more than once, especially now, because it's one of the things that the more, like I said earlier, the more experience you have with something, the better. So I'm not pointing anybody out here for not doing that. Everyone's doing a great job doing that. I'm just saying, don't be afraid to do that. I want to reiterate that point, because you guys are really good at asking questions, and I just want you to understand that that's a really important thing. And going over concepts more than once is a really good thing. So that said, let's take a look at this. So with the ball rolling, I saw some of you guys had some of your formulas in there, and that's great. I think, again, it goes back to, like, whatever works for you is what's important. And so even when I show you here, if you have a better way of doing this, then by all means do it. But so this is what I do when I have a ball rolling to a stop. And I actually, like I pointed out in the last Q&A, I use this actually more than once. I use I use this for character animation, which I can show you guys in later Q&As. But okay, so I start my timing here, right? Let me bring this to, so let's just say I have that timing. Now from here, this is where I like to use the graph editor, because it just starts making things easier for me to understand. Again, if you have a better way of doing it, by all means do that. So what I do after that, what I'll do with this is I'll turn every curve. I'll select every curve here, and I'll go to curves, weighted tangents. And I actually have hotkeys set up for that, which you can do too. But the reason why I have it weighted is because then now I can free that tangent weight. Tangents, let's see, right here. Free tangent weight. And you see what that does is now I can, like, move these tangents around like that. And what I'm doing is I'm highlighting that, and then with the middle mouse button, actually hold down Shift and middle mouse button. Holding down Shift will just keep it from going all over the place. It locks it on that axis. So I hold down Shift and middle mouse button to get that. With me so far? Great. Okay, so with the ball rolling, again, like there are formulas to use, What I do is I'll just grab this curve and I'll say, okay, like, look, which direction is it going in? It's going in this direction. So I'm going to add a few spins here and play it back. And that looks a little slow, so I'm going to keep going. Maybe another spin. That looks better. Maybe a little faster. That's fine. So with that, I have my ease ins, and notice the important thing is that holding down Control, and I have Rotate Z selected, and I hold down Control, and I have Rotate or Translate X. I have those both selected, so I'll frame those together by hitting F. And the important thing is that I have both tangents at the same, like one is not offset from the other. So if that were the case, like look what happens if I have, I'm just going to set that to auto tangent, so it brings it in a little closer. Actually, let me change it to spline, so it just shows what happens if one tangent is off from the other. I'm going to get that spin. It's the same sort of thing that if I have one keyframe offset from the other one. Like I offset the rotate from the translate, and I get that spin too. Vice versa, if I go the other way, then it's going to slide without spinning. So it's really important that I keep those together, and that I keep these tangents really similar to each other too. So what I'll do is I'll just like if you find yourself resetting it, I go back to spline, and then I go, oh, I don't have a hotkey, that's why it's not working. So I flatten that out, and now they go together without sliding, but that stop feels very, it just feels too abrupt. So I'm going to give it more spacing here, and I'm going to give it more of an ease in. I'm going to pull that out. So now it's a lot more subtle. But now I want it to roll back a little bit. So what I do is I do the middle mouse thing. I go with my left mouse button, I go a few frames back, like right here. And with my middle mouse button, I hold down my middle mouse button, I go over a few frames forward, and then I keyframe everything. And so what that does is it copied that value. So if I look closely at my rotate Z, it copied that value. Now this is where like you want to double check this, because you want to be careful of stuff that looks. What I'll do here is I'll break the tangent weight, and I'll just move it over that same sort of thing here, where break it and then move it over. And again, that should be pretty similar to each other. I might have to just give it more time too. So that actually was probably a little bit too much rolling back. Let me give it more time here. Something really weird just happened with that. I have some setting here that's like offsetting this now. So let me try that again. Delete that. I need to figure out what that setting is, but right now I'll just go back here, maybe like right there, and then middle mouse forward to like right here, and then flatten that tangent. And so now it rolls to a stop. And then I can do that one more time. I can do it as many times as I want, but like this time I can go from here, left over, middle mouse over, and then it rolls and gets that subtle. So, yeah, the length of the tangents, they have to be the same. So you make sure that, like, if one is offset from the other, you're changing those values. So Yeah, yeah, exactly. When the ball is doing its rollback, should you have a little 2 to 3 frames hold on it? If it's doing this, it's totally okay to have a little bit of a hold on it. I wouldn't stop it completely, because look what happens. And a hold would be more of like an ease, like a stronger ease and a stronger ease out. Because if you stop it completely, look what happens here. 3 frame hold, and I'm just going to move these frames over. Oh, I did that weird thing again. I don't know why I have this weird setting. But anyway, what I did is I just copied these frames. So now there's like there's no movement on that at all. And the thing with computer animation is that if something stops completely, it's going to look a little weird. So that looks okay right now with that hold, but I would still want it to move forward just a little bit. So that's why, I mean, it's almost the same as just doing this. Like you can just bring that forward or what I do here is delete this, and then you can think of your tangents, your splines, like the longer they go out, the more that's kind of a hold itself. It doesn't stop all the pixels, and that's what's important in computer animation. We'll get to that later, but the tangents are offset, so it's looking like it's sliding. But yeah, like stopping something completely in computer animation, just know that there's something about computer animation. If something just stops suddenly and completely, it just kind of dies. So you want to keep those pixels moving any time you can, and this is why using ease ins and ease outs is a good way of keeping that, even if they're really long ease ins and ease outs. So does that make sense? Everyone clear on that? We can get into more of that stuff later too, and in terms of like keep alive and stuff. That's when we get to character animation. Okay, so yeah, no problem. So it should be an ease out as it starts to roll back on the settle, then an ease into a stop, or can it be faster than the ease into a stop? It's one of those things that it's really whatever looks good, Julian. Let me just cam you and make sure that we're does that make sense? Whatever looks good is the way to go. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing about computer animation that's the thing about animation is that ultimately whatever looks good is gonna win. So like developing your artistic eye and just like looking at things from that perspective, that's the important thing. And that's the hard part of animation. That really is the hardest part, because it's just like any other art. And to get really good at it, you really have to develop your eye and to really trust yourself and take those chances and know that it's okay to get knocked down and to maybe something didn't work. I mean, trust me, there's been many times when I thought something was going to be really amazing and everyone was going to be blown away. I sent it to dailies and just got completely destroyed and got tons of notes, and everyone was like, what were you thinking? Well, people aren't that mean, but like but basically that's the way I felt. I felt like people were saying like, what were you thinking? But honestly they're just like, go back and try again. That didn't work, but that's all part of it. Like that's the part where like your ego, it's on the line every day as an animator. Like you basically throw it out there every day, and that's the hardest part too, is to be like, okay, is that going to work or is it going to fail? And you have to understand that you're going to learn more from your failures than you are from your successes. That's the way that's just the way life works. And so that's the way you shouldn't be afraid to fail. You shouldn't be afraid to get knocked down every once in a while, because you're going to learn from that. You're going to learn, and that's how we learn even from when we were kids. You know, don't touch the stove, it's hot. You touch the stove as a failure, but you learn from that, and it's the same sort of thing here. And do get as many of those failures out of the way now in school before you start working, because it's better to do it now when it's cheap. Not financially cheap, but cheap in terms of your just your self-esteem, basically. Egos are the worst. Totally agree, Carlos. Yeah, no injuries. Yeah, no injuries here. So that's I just opened this mentor. So I want to show you guys a couple of things. First, we're doing the pendulum assignment this week, and this assignment is actually pretty tough when this assignment is actually both oddly easy and ridiculously hard. It has both of these things in it. And now we're getting to a point in animation where we've gotten the big stuff out of the way, the timing and spacing, the storytelling pose, the heavy and light, basically like the timing and spacing really is like the big one. And now everything we're adding from here on out is just going to add a bit more flavor to our animation and make our animation more believable. It doesn't make them that much less important, but it does make it does make them to where like they're the things that from the 12 principles that actually start adding more flexibility to your animation, more believability. So I want to show you guys this thing I worked on at Pixar, and this was the Finding Nemo ride, and this is at Disneyland now in the submarine ride. And what we did is we animated these characters as you see here, and you see like every segment here, like there's these red lines, and those are the borders, and there's this thing called the no-fly zone. What they did was they projected the animations that we did through a mirror onto the actual set, on the ride. So in this scene, when you go past it in the submarine, there's a volcano and the volcano is actually a prop that was built. It's a physical prop, and the characters are animated against that prop. So you see it. Like I've never seen the finished product. I've only seen what we did, and I saw the tank when it was empty, and that was really cool to see, like kind of like the behind the scenes of a Disney ride. But the reason why I'm showing you guys this is because with fish, especially with Finding Nemo, there is this sense of like, okay, what do you guys think? Like 90% of the animation is on these characters, especially these fish. Like let me show you, like these guys. I mean, I would almost even say it's 95%. Yeah, and like a lot of it is overlap, right? So what's the driving force of that overlap? This is in Florida. This is in Anaheim. But what's the driving force of that overlap? What drives that overlap? What's basically telling the character what's telling the animation that overlap should be there? The water. Think of it less as like the environmental part of it, and more about like what is on the character. What is the character doing? What are we animating that's going to drive that overlap? The fin flapping are part of that overlap. Definitely that's part of that overlap. But there's something that we animate, and that's the body control. Yeah, Julian, you're right. It's the face on these fish, because it's like that, and that face, what that is the head is the driving force. Like so basically when we were blocking this animation, we did 90% of it just with the body control, which on a fish is really the face, like the head part of it. And we would just animate it doing that without any overlap. But we would do the six controls, the 3 translates and the 3 rotates, and that was our layout. And for 90% of this animation was about blocking and about testing it versus like how the sub is going to see this, how each individual guest at the park is going to see where, depending on where they're sitting on the sub, how they're going to see this animation. So it really was less about polishing and more about getting that layout down. And so determining that, then is, yeah, the rest of it, the other 10% is just overlapping. And that is, like everything else, is just like moving it around. And then once we get overlapping, but you see how much overlapping actually brought this stuff together. It actually brings that polished quality to everything. So it's the same with the pendulum. Like, I want you guys to think of it the same way here with the pendulum assignment, is that, let me open it up first. Oh, why isn't it doing that? There we go. And let me try to open it from the actual content navigator. I should have it here. There we go. So when we animate this, we're thinking the same way that we think of it with everything else. We're only looking at it from the front view. Like, some people will put it the side view, and what happens when you turn it in with the side view is you actually see the front of the pendulum. So that's okay if you do this, but I feel like that's one little confusion with this rig, is that, like, you can look at it from the front view and it's fine. Like, as long as it's orthographic, that's fine. But yeah, what we want to do now is establish, first and foremost, the most important thing to animate on this before we do anything else is this controller. The pendulum to controller, like that, it's actually called that. And so, yeah, the block, exactly, the brick, whatever you want to call it, that is going to control everything else with this overlap. So think of it like that when you're animating it. How you animate it is one thing. Like, the way I tell every student about this animation, about this assignment, is that you're not going to get a job based on this assignment. Like, no one's going to, like, if you go really complicated with this assignment and then show it to someone at Pixar, they're not going to hire you. Unfortunately, yeah, sad face. So with that said, and the reason why I say that is because a lot of people can get really carried away with this assignment, and it ends up biting them in the butt, because it is one of those things that it can be it's very easy at first, but it can also be very complicated. And so just don't get carried away with it. Just understand that you're learning basic principles here, and take those basic principles very seriously, because you're going to use them a lot later on down the line. But don't go crazy. Keep it simple. Keep it very, very simple if you have to. The easy route here is sometimes the better way to go, especially if you're not sure whether or not you're comfortable doing that. Okay? Exactly. K-I-S-S. Those are ready to start work next week too. Yeah, there's only a 3-week course, and then you go straight to Pixar. Everyone knows that. But yeah, keep it very, very simple. So that's why I say when there's two ways of doing that. You can do this like going back and forth, starting from one position and going to the other, and then just building the overlap on top of that. Now, Bobby has a demo for this, right? You guys have seen that? Is that still up? Pretty sure, right? Yeah. Where he takes, I mean, if you haven't seen it, just know that, I mean, that's there, where you basically take this, and this is, a lot of this was how we animated those fish, those Nemo fish. Where, like, you take that, and then you take the first one down, and then you animate that based on where your block is stopping. So stopping here, I need more frames. And I can also just look at that and say, okay, it stopped here. Let's bring that up. And I'm going to offset that from here. So this going down by a couple of frames. And I can just kind of set this timing from here. Set it over. It goes back. And again, I'm going to use my middle mouse button trick here. So I'm going to left mouse button over. I'm going to middle mouse forward. Copy that frame. And then middle mouse over here, copy that frame, and I'm just going to go into my graph editor. So Google Pin do a barrel. I just watched that movie again. Top Gun. Just watched it again it's been a while. By the way, it's an amazing movie. Is that from Top Gun? Do a barrel? That might be from something else. Okay, so I'm just establishing that timing here. Star Fox, that's what it's from. Oh yeah, I was like, wait, that's not. I just watched it. Do a barrel. That's right. Nice, Dominic. So yeah, I'm just establishing this timing, right? I'm just getting this down based on what? Based on what this block is doing. That's the only thing that really matters here. The timing that I establish here is based on this block, and I can really, once I get that timing down, I can really start to polish this timing on this first swing. So I can like say, okay, getting that. And one thing to watch out for is like don't let it keep swinging forever. That's one of those tricks that I see a lot of students do. Have it come to a stop it comes to a stop a lot quicker than you think. So even that, like, that's too much. So I'm just gonna bring that down, and I'm adjusting my timing here because it's easier for me to see. You want the timing on this to be similar. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be very close to the same, and the values change. So it's not the timing that's changing, it's the values that are changing here. So I do that, and then I can take this, grab that curve, Control-C, copy it, go down to the next one, hit S, make sure there's keyframes on it, make sure that I have my Z controller selected, Control-V, copy that. Now I'm going to offset this over here. You see this little area right here where the number is, where your frame is. I'm going to say plus equals 2. Go 2 frames forward. Okay, so this is wrapping this up pretty quickly. So I'm just basically offsetting these. Now going down to the next one. And that selecting this, Control-V. Now I'm selecting everything here, and I went 2 frames forward from this one. 2 frames forward. Now I'm going to go 2 frames forward from that one. And because I started this at frame 1, I'm going to say plus equals 4. And that offsets it by 4 frames. So I get that overlap. And that seems so easy, right? So the trick with this is that it only really works sometimes. And it only works in cases where things are kind of simple on this path right here. Because if things start getting a little bit more complicated, like if you start adding a figure 8 motion, or if you start saying like, okay, this is going to go up, and then it's going to go down, and then it's going to go up again, and it's going to have like all this crazy motion to it, then that overlap trick won't really work as much. You're going to have to do basically what Dominic, what you do when you're animating stuff is like look at that motion path and just really analyze it. Like don't just trust what the graph editor is doing, because the graph editor isn't going to do what you want it to. And don't just make that easy fix of like saying, okay, I'm just going to take this curve and offset them, because you're going to have to really eyeball it. You're going to have to look at each individual frame. Going back to what I showed you guys with the fish, a lot of that, hold on, something weird is happening here. Okay, a lot of that was, where did it go? Did I close it? Yeah. A lot of this was done one frame at a time. And when we started, my lead on the project, who worked on Nemo, the movie, he was like, yeah, we use this trick where you take the controller and then you offset stuff, and then basically what I just showed you, he showed me that trick. And then he's like, it works, but most of the time it doesn't work. Like when you have complex motions like this, where like with this purple fish specifically, like all that part right here was animated one frame at a time, just to make sure that all the arcs were there and all that overlap was there, and it actually was very meticulous. So just know that, like you have some tricks at your disposal that can make things easier, but they don't work. I would say they don't work most of the time. They work sometimes, and sometimes that's awesome. But a lot of the times they don't work, and it's up to you to make sure that each of those frames are animated correctly and look good. Okay? So, so tricks can be tricky. That's exactly right. It's a great way of saying it, Julian. Great way of thinking of it. So that said, please keep this simple. Know that I would rather see a simple animation that's very polished than a very complex animation that isn't finished. That leads to like, well, I have to give you an F because you didn't finish your assignment. If you do something very simple and it looks great and it's beautifully animated and it has all the nice polish and it's very simple, I'm not going to say, oh, it's too simple, you get an F. I'm going to say that looks perfect because you did everything in the animation looks great, and so you'll most likely get an A. So think about that when you're doing this assignment. Simplicity is key on every assignment, even when it comes to your professional work. So, yeah, too simple. Get out of here. I will never say that. I promise you, I'll never say that. If the animation is all there, I will never say that. Yeah, if you're like it's just a ball sitting there or the pendulum sitting there without any animation, that is too simple. You didn't do anything. So, any other questions before I have to go pretty soon too? But any other questions? Are you guys feeling pretty comfortable about this? And everything in general? Okay. Great. Okay, well, with that said, let me know if you have any questions along the way. Please email me. And that's it. Have a great week. Have fun with this assignment. All right, take care. See you guys.